Long ago, before the sun rose higher than the sacred baobabs, before the great river split the earth into 1,000 veins of life, there was a mysterious island known as Umozi. It was said to be the cradle of the world, where the ancestors of all the living beings once walked. But now, no one spoke of it, for it was a place veiled in myths, fear, and shadow. The elders of the village whispered its name only in hushed tones, as if calling to it would summon something far worse than the storms that swept across the savannah.
In the heart of the ancient kingdom of Django lived a woman known as Nia. She was a powerful oracle with eyes that saw beyond time and ears that heard the voices of the wind, the mountains, and the rivers. For years, she had given wise counsel to the chiefs and warriors, but one fateful evening, as the full moon rose high, Nia was struck by a vision. In her dream, she saw an island, lush and green, surrounded by dark waters that shimmered like the soul of the night. The island was hidden, its shape changing as though it were alive. Massive waves crashed against the shore, and from the depth of the sea, creatures of monstrous proportions rose, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. A dark shadow, neither man nor beast, stared within the heart of the highland, and it was calling to her. The voice came in a whisper, as soft as the rustling leaves in the breeze, yet as powerful as the roar of the lion. Umozi awaits Nia. You must return before the world ends. Startled, Nia awoke, her breath shallow and her heart racing. The elders have spoken of this highland, for it was a tale told in warnings, not adventure. Legend said that Umozi was cursed, a land where the gods had once walked, but had abandoned after a great betrayal. The highland was said to be both a place of creation and destruction, where the boundaries between the living and the spirit were so thin that they could touch each other with a whisper. The next day, Nia sought counsel with the oldest elder in the kingdom, a man named Zuberi, whose beards were long enough to touch the ground. His eyes were clouded with age, but his mind was sharp, and his voice carried the weight of 1,000 years. Umozi said solemnly, as if the name itself was a burden. Long ago, the gods dwelt there. They created the first humans, the first animals, and the first trees. But the island was abandoned after a great conflict. The gods quarreled, their voices splitting the heavens in two. The island sank into the sea, and all who sought it were lost. No ship, no map, no sailor has ever found it since. What of my dreams? Nia asked, her voice trembling with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Zuberi's eyes grew wide, and for a moment it was as if the weights of the centuries passed and pressed upon him. He took a deep breath and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. The highland still exists, he said, but it's not the same as it once was. The spirit of the highland have turned restless, angry, and filled with grief. To journey there is to risk losing one's soul. Despite Zuberi's warnings, Nia could not shake the feeling that her destiny was tied to Umozi. She gathered a group of trusted warriors and embarked on a journey to find the island. They sailed westward across the great ocean, their boats cutting through the waves like a sharp blade. The journey was long and the waters were treacherous, but Nia's heart urged her onward, as if something unseen was pulling her towards the forgotten land. For many days they sailed, their provisions dwindling and the storm clouds growing ever darker on the horizon. The crew began to grow uneasy, whispering amongst themselves. The ocean seemed to stretch on forever, and the winds no longer seemed to carry them forward. It was as though the sea itself had decided to imprison them in its vastness. On the seventh night, as the stars glowed in the sky, Nia stood at the bow of the ship, her eyes fixed on the dark expanse ahead. The wind had died down, and the only sound was the gentle lapping of the water against the hull. Then, in the distance, she saw it, a faint light, glowing like a firefly in the middle of the ocean. "Umozi," she whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. The warriors around her gasped. The light grew brighter, and the shape of an island slowly materialized before their eyes. But it was not like many islands they had seen before. The trees on its shore were twisted and gnawed, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The cliffs were steep and jagged, and the water around it was unnaturally calm, as though the sea itself feared the land. As they approached the island, an heavy silence fell over the ship. The crew exchanged nervous glances, their eyes wide with unease, but Nia remained calm. She had seen this place in a vision, and she knew it was where our journey would reach its climax. They decided to dock on a rocky shore, and as they stepped onto the island, the air seemed to grow thick with an ancient power. The land was eerily quiet, save for the rustling of leaves in the wind. The sea, the trees seemed to whisper in languages that the warriors could not understand. The earth beneath their feet felt alive, pulsating with an energy that sent shivers down their spines. "Stay close," Nia said, her voice steady but filled with an underlying urgency. "We are not alone here." As they ventured deeper into the island, the atmosphere grew even more oppressive. The forest grew denser, and strange creatures, neither beast nor spirit, watched them from the shadows. Their eyes glowed embers in the dark, and their movements were swift and silent. Nia could feel their presence, but they never showed themselves fully. It was as if the island itself was watching them, waiting. After what felt like hours, they came upon clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone structure, an ancient temple half hidden by overgrown vines. Its walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air around it seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. Nia approached the temple cautiously, her heart racing as she realized this was the heart of Umozi, the place where the gods had once walked. At the entrance of the temple, a figure appeared. It was tall, cloaked in shadow, with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness like twin suns. He spoke in a voice through the fabric of it. "Why have you come, Oracle?" The figure asked. "Do you seek to awaken what has been forgotten?" Nia stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "I have come to learn the truth. What happened to the gods? Why was Umozi abandoned?" The figure remained silent for a long moment, his glowing eyes fixed on her. Then, with a voice that was like the wind through the trees, it spoke again. "Umozi was not abandoned," it said. "The gods did not leave. It was they who were betrayed. The island is a prison, and those who have sought it are never meant to leave." As the figure's words sank in, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the low rumbling sound filled the air. The sky above them darkened, and the wind began to howl, as though the island itself was awakening from a long slumber. The warriors around Nia began to panic, but she stood still, her mind racing. The truth was clear now. The gods had not abandoned Umozi.
They had been betrayed by their own creations, humans who sought their powers to take control of the island's secrets for themselves. But there was more, much more. The island was not merely a prison for the gods, it was a tomb for those who had died in betrayal. And now, Nia and her warriors were at the heart of the cause. As the head shook, the figure in the shadow stepped forward, revealing its true form. It was neither man nor beast, but something far older, something that existed before time in itself. The voice boomed and the sky cracked open. Leave now, it ordered, or remain forever as part of Umozi's curse. But it was too late. The island trembled again, and the spirit of the betrayed gods began to stir. Shadows writhed and twisted, and the air grew thick with the presence of something ancient and vengeful. Nia realized that there was no escape in Umozi's wrath. The only choice now was to face it head-on. With a fierce determination, Nia reached deep within herself. Drawing on the ancient power that had once been hers to command, she raised her arms to the heavens, calling upon the gods to hear her plea. "Forgive us," she cried. "We did not know the full weight of our actions. We seek only to understand, not to control." The ground beneath her began to shake violently. But the figure in the shadows laughed, its voice echoing in all directions. "You cannot undo the past," it said, "but you can make a choice, your soul or your people." Nia stood at the crossroads of destiny, her heart pounding as the weight of the figure's word pressed upon her like the weight of the sky. The ground trembled beneath her, and the air crackled with the presence of ancient spirits, restless and furious. She felt the eyes of the betrayed gods upon her, their gazes like burning coals, searing into her soul. The figure in the shadows, now fully revealed as something neither human nor god, loomed above her. Its form seemed to shift with the winds, a shape distorted by the anger of the land. The ancient temple around them groaned in the winds. Fury and the earth beneath their feet threatened to swallow them all. "You must choose," the figure repeated, its voice thunderous. "Your soul or your people. The price for entering Umozi is high, Oracle." The word struck Nia like a blow. The power to save her people, her warriors who had followed her into the hearts of this cursed land, was within her grasp. But at what cost? Would her life be enough to undo the wrongs of those who had betrayed God so long ago? Nia closed her eyes, and for a moment the chaos of the island seemed too quiet. She felt a strange calm watch over her, as if she were no longer standing on the island but suspended between worlds. She felt the pull of the spirits, their grief and their rage, and yet she also felt their sorrow, the sorrow of beings who had once lived in harmony with the earth, only to be betrayed by the very creation who they had nurtured. Her heart ached as she thought of the many ways and many people who had perished in the island's curse, the lost souls who roamed the islands, unable to find rest. She understood now. The gods had not abandoned Umozi. They had been forced into internal isolation, their divine power twisted by the betrayal of creations, and in their anger, they had bound the island to a fate of internal unrest. "I will not let my people suffer because of past mistakes," Nia whispered to herself, her voice firm but soft. Opening her eyes, she stepped forward, her hands still raised towards the heavens. The winds hurled around her, but she stood tall, unwavering. Our warriors looked to her in fear, but she spoke to them, her voice strong, despite the uncertainty of the moment. "Stay back, that is my burden to bear." The figure in the shadow seemed to grow even larger, its eyes narrowing as it studied her. "You have made your choice, Oracle," it said coldly. "But now, this the gods will not forgive easily. The curse of Umozi is not something that can be undone with words alone. You must offer something of great value in return." Nia nodded, her face irresolute. "I offer my life," she declared. Her voice steady. "I offer my soul, my very being, to the gods of Umozi, to break the chains that bind this land. Let the curse end with me." There was a moment of stillness, an unnatural silence that hung heavy in the air. The warriors standing at the edge of the clearing exchanged nervous glances. But Nia did not falter. She could feel the ancient power of the highlands surge in response to her declaration. His pulse now one with her own heart. "Very well, Oracle. You have chosen the prize. Your soul shall be the key to unlocking the curse of Umozi." The wind roared, and the ground beneath Nia's feet cracked open. The highland seemed to tremble with the force of centuries of rage and sorrow. The gods awakening from their long slumber. As the figure raised its hand, a storm of energy gathered in the sky, and the first time in millennia, the heavens, the rifts, the gods descended, their forms luminous and vast, each one a being of light and shadow, a testament to the power that once flowed freely through the islands. They gazed down, and Nia, their face filled with a mixture of pity and regret and understanding. "You have done what none before you could," one of the gods spoke, its voice like the crashing of waves. "You have given up everything to restore what was broken. And for that, we will free Umozi from its chains." With a final thunderous roar, the island seemed to exhale the oppressive weight lifted from the land. The trees that had once whispered of death now rustled with life. The skies cleared, revealing stars that had been hidden for years. And the spirit of the betrayed god, whose voices had filled the air with grief and fury, now sang a song of release, a song of forgiveness. But as the curse of Umozi lifted, Nia felt a great emptiness begin to fill her heart. The cost of her sacrifice was more than just the loss of her soul. It was the loss of her connection to the world she had known. She would no longer walk among the living, no longer see the faces of those she loved, or hear the laughter of her people. The gods had freed the island, but they had cleansed her in return. As the warriors gathered around her, their faces a mixture of horror and sorrow, Nia turned to them one final time. "Go home," she whispered. "Tell the world that Umozi is no longer a place of fear, but a place of rebirth. Let the highland heal, and let the people remember the cost of betrayal." With those final words, Nia's form began to fade, her body dissolving into the winds of Umozi. Her essence became one with the highland. Her soul joined the spirits of the gods she had freed. And so, the forgotten highland of Umozi was no more a place of fear and torment. The myth that surrounded it faded into the past, and the highland became a sacred land of peace. Its secrets no longer hidden in shadow, but in the hearts of those who remembered. The story of Nia, the oracle, who had sacrificed everything to restore the balance, lived on. The highland of Umozi was once lost to time and forgotten by the world, was now a place of internal reverence, its shores forever touched by the legacy of a woman. What is the moral of this story? The moral of this story is that true healing and redemption often require great personal sacrifice.
It teaches us that betrayal has lasting consequences, but with courage, responsibility, and selflessness, even the deepest wounds can be healed. Nia's willingness to give up everything for the greater good shows that leaders must somewhat make difficult sacrificial choices for the benefit of others. If you enjoyed the story, kindly click on the subscribe button. Don't forget to drop your comments and also drop your like. Thank you guys.